No ID is meant for a sane audience. No ID may contain liberty-oriented content. Pinko discretion is advised. Now, here's No ID with Paul Banducci and Scott Moskowitz.
Why, hello there. Welcome back to No ID. I'm Scott.
Hello, Internet. I'm Paul.
I heard that you're watching some extra
here?
kids this morning. That's the last I heard before we hit the live button is that you were watching some extra kids. So I'm assuming you're gathering something around $200,000 a month from the state for doing that?
More like $4 million a year. Psh, amateurs. I figured I'd take a page out of the Minnesota Somali books and open up a Quality Learing Center at my house.
I'm too good at leering myself personally, you know.
You're too good at leering?
Yeah.
Well,
I get in trouble for it.
We're like that School for Troubled Youth from Zoolander, where the building has to be at least 3 times bigger.
One of us needs that on our soundboard, which is a center for ants.
It's classic. It's a classic. If you know, you know.
The story, of course, right now is like sort of breaking from Minnesota, this video that everybody is seeing. It doesn't directly pertain yet to North Idaho, but I did get sent an interesting string. Right. I got sent an interesting string of grok conversation from one of our producers last night who basically said, here's what I did. I prompted grok to assume what is happening there in Minnesota is happening everywhere. Given that assumption, who would the likely players be and organizations be and boards of fill-in-the-blanks be in North Idaho that might be executing something similar? And there was a very interesting string of names, some of whom we have discussed on this show, some of whom I'm not familiar with, but you might be. I don't have like a full soliloquy prepared for this because I just got sent it last night, didn't get a chance to do a deep enough dive. But I would like to talk about that with you offline in between this week's and next week's show and see what kind of presentation we might be able to make along those lines. Because, of course, it's all speculative, but one has to assume that if it's happening there, it's happening everywhere.
It is definitely happening everywhere. And it's happening here, too, on a smaller scale because there are more guardrails in Idaho, and the demographics matter. The saying demographics are destiny. It's true. Idaho doesn't have the same level of issues as a lot of other places because our demographics are different. And if you want to try to cheat the system in Idaho, it's a little bit tougher. Not a lot, but enough to move the needle. So that's a conversation I'd love to have. I want to see what you got there, man. We'll talk about it offline, and I definitely want to bring it to our producers.
Let me just share this before we get into stories for this week out of the Panhandle, which, of course, will start with the shooting. Let me just say this one thing about the Minnesota thing, because it reminded me of the art documentary called Made You Look, which is about the Knoedler Gallery in New York and about a long-running fraud that occurred there between 95, and 2009. Went on for many years, involving tens of millions of dollars. I think it was something around $80 million in fraudulent art that was moved through that gallery. That gallery was the oldest in New York and one of the oldest in the country from the 19th century. And basically a con woman named Glafiro Rosales had a Chinese national forge a bunch of abstract impressionist artists. So it's like the Jackson Pollock era, Mark Rothko, de Kooning, and that whole set of artists. And she sort of was like, in the trunk of her car, like came into the gallery and was like, hey, I have all of these undiscovered works from these artists. Oh, I know this very secretive Swiss collector, and the works were acquired directly from the artists by this very secretive collector, so they have no provenance. Like, yeah, they don't have records because they were acquired directly from the artists. But here they are. Here are these works, and these works sell for millions of dollars. In any case, the gallery had them authenticated, and the top people from the art world were saying, yes, these are real, these are authenticated. The gallery
all the pageantry.
All of it. The gallery then went on to sell these works to because of course, this is the most prominent collectors in the world that are buying these sorts of nosebleed artworks. $3 million for this and $5 million for that. And it all eventually came crashing down, and there were lawsuits, and the gallery closed permanently in 2011. That documentary was very good and featured the head of the gallery, the lady who was actually doing all the purchasing, who was basically like, I got taken for a ride too. And the reason that I'm bringing all of this up is, yes, Glafira Rosales and the Chinese national who were executing these actual paintings were frauds. The gallery was perpetrating a fraud, even though, they say they didn't know. The authenticators are frauds, even though they are, the apologies are few and far between, as you might imagine, because they need to keep their status as professional art assessors. And so
that's an awkward position to be in.
There's all of this downstream fraud, but the real fraud in all of it is de Kooning and Rothko and Jackson Pollock. They're the frauds. That's why you can execute their artwork and then have everybody think you couldn't do that with Albert Bierstadt. You couldn't do that with Johannes Vermeer. You just couldn't do it because their paintings are not red squares on black canvases.
Or I have enough taped to a white wall.
Right.
I'm sure you're familiar with that piece. There's been more than one. Like the original sold for like $6 million or something. And then there's been a couple of replications of it by the artist. So they're original replications, if you will. And each time they go for 6 or 7 figures. And it's a banana taped to a wall. A banana that is a real banana that decays and ages and rots. And so you eat it, I guess, or throw it away or just let it rot on your wall. I don't know.
Well, and so the parallel that I'm getting at here, nobody is talking about the original artists as frauds, even though that's where the fraud starts, because they can't admit that those people are fraud because they're like these legendary abstract impressionists that are supposed to be these very impressive artists.
I agree with you in a sense. The art is fraud because it's not what I would consider art. I mean, I could have one of my children, a young child, splash paint all over a canvas and be like, voila, it's valuable. On the other hand, the market wants what the market wants. And if people find it to be valuable and an artist keeps splashing paint on a canvas and people keep buying it for ridiculous amounts of money, well, the artist is just giving the market what the market apparently wants. So on one hand, I'd say, yeah, that's fraudulent. On the other hand, I'd say, well, we can question the quality of your product all day long. That's highly debatable all day long, because that's subjective. Of course, now we're getting into Austrian economics, and the thing I love about Austrian economics is that value is subjective. It's not based on labor. It's not based on capital. It's based on subjective wants, desires, needs, and incentives.
Well,
that's a whole other can of worms.
Then I suppose what's happening in Minnesota is not fraud either, since that's apparently what Minnesotans want.
Mm-hmm. Now, that's another way of looking at it, isn't it? Isn't it? One could make that case in a way. It's kind of a sick and twisted way to look at it, but there are a lot of folks who tend to like it that way, inexplicably. Either they're on the take or they don't know any better or whatnot. But I would say, as I think our producers here will understand, is there is a difference between fraud involving money forcibly stolen from unwilling participants, i.e. taxes, and a free and fair marketplace where people willingly exchange currency for goods and services.
In my example, they were willingly exchanging for goods that were being fraudulently represented. They weren't the goods they thought they were getting. And what I was really getting at here was...
Yeah, no argument there.
The source of the fraud, just like it's actually de Kooning and Rothko and Pollock in that example, the source of the fraud in Minnesota is the state. The original fraud is the state. The entire program is fraudulent. Like the notion that you should be getting money from the state for running a daycare center is fraudulent in the first place. So everything that flows downstream from that is a fraud.
Well, the whole premise is rotten and fraudulent from start to finish. The premise is they steal the money over the barrel of a gun. First off, I mean it's extortion. At the very least, it's extortion. Then it's doled out based on grift and graft and who knows who and a shitty system of distribution. I mean, that's fraud right there. And of course, it's used and abused by anybody who knows how to file the right paperwork and set up an NGO and everything like that. That's fraud right there. And I mean, running Quality Learing Centers with no kids is fraud. I mean, all across the board and all the way down at all levels. But the big burr in my saddle is that it's public money versus private sector. It's both wrong. Obviously, I'm not making the case that one is wrong and one is not. But one is where everybody suffers. The other is where if you just got snookered by your lack of due diligence or bad luck, well, you suffer. But that's a really important distinction.
Well, I don't know about the premise. Not everybody suffers. All of the face-hiding fat Somalis, they're not suffering. They're rolling in it. All of the
and of course the politicians they vote for, they're rolling in it.
The entire the industrial complex apparatus isn't suffering for it. All of the dumbbell Minnesotans who stand outside the door going, ice, ice, like robots, they seem to quite like it too. So I don't think everybody suffers. As a matter of fact, it seems like only some suffer.
Well, it gets better because an article came out today that in Illinois, over 400 state employees have been accused of abusing and defrauding the Paycheck Protection Program back in 2020 and 2021 to the tune of tens of millions of dollars, to the shock of no one. But it just keeps rolling. I mean, so to go back to your original question, and the conversation with Grok is it's everywhere. It's every state, it's every town, it's every city, it's everywhere. It is pervasive. And it's just a matter of how much and who is perpetrating it. And so when it comes to Idaho, I guarantee you it's going on. Places like Moscow, which have a college, name a college town, shit's getting laundered and filtered through the colleges and the staff and faculty there, and the people who pulled the strings. Boise, it's going to be a hotbed for that stuff, of course, the capital of Idaho. And then places like Coeur d'Alene and Sandpoint, where a lot of wealthy leftists and pseudo-Republicans live who own a lot of stuff. They know how to pull the strings too. So, yeah, man, it's everywhere. It's one of the biggest reasons why I'm an anarchist and why most people who think the way I think are anarchists or hardcore libertarians. Is the reasoning goes, it's a lot harder to defraud the government and steal all this money if the government is smaller and doesn't give as much away. There's more guardrails, there's more oversight. You can't, the bigger and more bureaucratic the state is and the government is, the easier it is to defraud, plain and simple.
The PPP example is another perfect one. The people who are $4 million were collected falsely, but those are just pissant, irrelevant, interchangeable, downstream NPC fraudsters. The fraud itself originates with the government. The PPP program was a fraud to begin with. The premise was a fraud. The money is not real. It was all phony baloney from top to bottom from the source.
You get a bell.
Okay, enough of this already. Let's get on to the real story that everyone here cares about in our panhandle.
Breaking news we've been following all afternoon out of Wallace, Idaho. A gunman shot 2 women and a sheriff's deputy at the Shoshone County Sheriff's Office before he was killed by law enforcement. The women and the deputy are going to be okay. The sheriff's office says this all started around 2:30 this afternoon. The shooter fired at a car next to the building, hitting 2 women. The gunman then shot a deputy at the entrance and continued firing inside. After a shootout, the gunman was killed by law enforcement. You are seeing a massive police response with help from Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, the FBI, and U.S. Marshals.
A violent afternoon hits the heart of Shoshone County in Wallace, Idaho.
About 2:30 p.m., suspect entered the sheriff's office lobby and began firing.
Before entering the county sheriff's office, Shoshone Sheriff Eddy says the gunman shot 2 women in the leg and grazed a deputy's ear outside. He then barricaded himself in the empty office lobby. Sheriff Eddy assures that inmates in the attached jail were secure and not in danger the whole time. Julie Edward, a bystander watching from across the street while getting groceries, shares what she saw.
I see sheriff's cars, lights coming down, and then as I'm approaching my car, I heard gunshots.
Nearly 2 hours later, she describes the abrupt end to the chaos.
At some point, I did hear him say pretty much they come out and let me see your hands, and then I heard some gunshots. And pretty much after that, it seemed like the situation was neutralized.
Law enforcement kills the gunman around 4:30, but it's unclear which agency or officer fired the deadly shot, killing the unknown man. And also from the press conference, Shoshone County Sheriff sharing with us the shooter had multiple weapons on him. When asked further questions, he explained multiple guns, but wouldn't clarify how many guns and what type of guns they were. Tonight, Wallace faces a massive crime scene, shocking the small community. And as the investigation continues through the night, authorities working to understand what exactly led up to the shooting here in Wallace, who the shooter is, and the motive behind it, plus how many shots were fired by both officers and the shooter.
I'm curious if they, because this is one of the things that remains unclear, and I'm curious if what you found touches on it, because what I've seen hasn't touched on it, was motive.
It's either unknown or hasn't been released, but he's the guy's almost 80 years old, and apparently is someone who is pretty well known in Wallace, which is a very small community. So sort of a lot of people know a lot of people, and I'm wondering if it was almost a suicide by cop situation where he went in to make a point, like he was wronged in some way, and he went in to make a point. He wasn't going to murder anybody. He was just going to fire a bunch of shots and maybe hit someone in the foot or something like that, and then be taken out, that seems to be what happened. In any case, here's this clip, which is in when they officially identified him.
New information out of Wallace, Idaho about the shooting that happened Friday afternoon at the Shoshone County Sheriff's Office. Here's a look at shattered glass and bullet holes in the building. The sheriff identified the shooter as 77-year-old John Drake from Mourn, Idaho. Around 2:30 on Friday afternoon, he shot and injured 2 women in a pickup truck before barricading himself inside the sheriff's office. He was killed by law enforcement in a shootout around 4:15 that same day. And while this investigation unfolds, the Shoshone County Sheriff's Office focusing on moving forward and community safety.
And it's important for us to remember that this is not the majority of our citizens. This is an event that we wish we could have avoided, but we're going to take it in stride and do what we've done on the regular.
That's sort of a weird quote. It's not the majority. So in other words, the majority of our citizens don't take weapons into the sheriff's office and start fire. Yeah, no kidding. Doesn't that seem like kind of a weird quote?
Well, I think out of context, yes, but in context, no, not at all. In fact, I think the sheriff's department and those around it at this point feel the need to probably add that caveat to a lot of their statements about these kinds of things, because it's been a really tough year for the Shoshone Sheriff's Department, for Shoshone County in general. But man, I don't envy the job. I got jokes, but not going to crack a lot of them right now, because that's kind of a bummer. Actually, it's a big bummer for a dude to go in there and shoot the place up and lose his own life, of course, and threaten the lives of others. It's a bummer. So I think the Shoshone County folks are feeling like, well, it's been a crazy run the last few months, maybe year. We're not all like this, we promise.
No. Okay, good point.
I mean, really, I think, yeah, for them, it's probably felt like one thing after another. I mean, 2 or 3 different officers being arrested and dealt with, resignations, lawsuits. You've got the shooting. You've got
the death of that hunter, and there was all that public questioning.
Hunter.
Yep.
And I think that's only in the last 4 months, 5 months. So that's why I think they probably feel the need to say that kind of stuff. It's really a nice place, we promise. We're not all like this, we promise. Like it's usually quiet, and it's a good place to be. As a local, I'd be really sad, but at the same time, I'd be kind of thrilled, because it'd be like, oh man, maybe it'll keep out of towners away. Maybe my property values will go down a little bit, and the taxes will decrease too. Yeah, stay away. Idaho's crazy. Everybody, get out of here. Go away.
We can dare to dream.
This is now a multi-agency investigation involving the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office and Coeur d'Alene Police Department. Idaho State Police handling the law enforcement shooting investigation.
I do have one more clip, because there was an official press conference where the 3rd sheriff in 3 months, Sheriff Eddy, addressed questions from the press, and there were a lot of very informative answers. So I put together a supercut, just to quickly get an idea of just how forthright the sheriff was being at that press conference.
I don't have an answer for that.
Real quick.
I don't know.
Oh,
go ahead.
Sorry, I will say this. It is worth noting that when this happened, it was like a 6-agency response.
Yes.
So it does go to show how rare something like this is, and how excited everybody in law enforcement was to get on the scene and do something useful, I guess. I don't think, because there's just not a lot going on. So you had Montana State Police over there. You had Spokane Police. You had Shoshone County Police. You had the feds, multiple different federal agencies. So it was anywhere from 5 to 6 different agencies that were on handling this. So it goes to show it really is a rare event, and it's still a small, quiet area for the most part when you get that many agencies showing up for something like this.
Word has it the Kootenai sheriff sat in the grounded helicopter and just sort of simulated as if he was flying over there, and he was heard making helicopter noises with his mouth. Anyway, here is the
pew, 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 pew.
Here's the Shoshone Sheriff William Eddy and a supercut from his press conference that yours truly put together for your edification.
I don't have an answer for that. I don't know anything about it. All I know is I do not know. That's all I know. I don't know. All I know is, and that's all I have at this time. That's it. That's all I know. That's all I know. And then I don't know anything about that. That's about all I knew. So I don't have the answer to that, and I'm not going to release that information at this time. I don't know that at this time. That's all I know. All right. Well, that's all I have. Thank you.
That's pretty much the summary of the press conference with Sheriff William Eddy.
So I'm starting to think that earlier when you said that it was highly informative, now I'm starting to wonder if you were joking.
No, man, we're not making jokes about the situation. You said so yourself.
Yeah, I'm waking up. I'm slow on the uptake, but no, that was very informative.
It's no laughing matter. You know what else is no laughing matter? The minimum wage and all of the changes that are about to take place in 2026.
By the end of this week, millions of workers will see a bump in their paycheck. It's not a federal increase. Many of them are due to inflation adjustments. Many are tied to state ballot measures approved by voters. On New Year's Day, the minimum wage in the state of Washington goes to $17.13. Oregon's minimum wage, which is already close to $15, goes up later in 2026.
Get ready.
Meanwhile, Idaho's minimum wage remains at $7.25 an hour. It is aligned with the federal minimum wage, so Idaho's minimum wage has not increased since 2009.
Pop question for you, Paul. What is the proper minimum wage?
The proper minimum wage is $0. You cannot mandate what something is worth, and that includes labor. Man, people are economically illiterate. It's crazy. That's most people. Most people are economically illiterate. So if $17.50 an hour is good for minimum wage in Washington and $22 an hour is good for minimum wage in California and so on and so forth, why not make the minimum wage $100 an hour? Why not make everybody gorillionaires overnight and just make the minimum wage $1,000 an hour? Like what magically makes it 22 make sense versus 100 versus 725? It's absurd. But congratulations on taking out a lower rung in the career ladder for those with less experience or less talent or less intelligence or circumstances that only want, where they can work part-time and or where the value of their labor is lower, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, and also congratulations on taking what should be a voluntary interaction, which is, I would like to work for you. Like, well, I would like to hire you, and here's the wage we agree on. And instead, stepping in and being like, wait right there, you can't do this without our say-so and our permission, and you have to pay this much. Well, I can't pay that much. Well, then you can't hire this person. Oh, thank you. Thank you for your help, government. This was great.
You know that half of our fellow citizens hear everything you just said as Paul wants people to make nothing an hour.
And I want to pay them nothing an hour. As a business owner, I wish I would pay my employees nothing if I didn't have to. That is the truth. And that's not because I hate them. That's because it makes for a better business and I can keep more money to take care of my bills or expand or pay myself, which is always a nice thought once in a while.
So greedy.
In a free market, it doesn't work that way. You cannot get somebody to do something for you without a proper incentive. And in a free and competitive market, there are proper incentives. And I have to compete for labor because labor is a good, or it's a service, or it's a resource, just like anything else, like a physical good, like a metaphorical service. It is a resource like anything else. And it is scarce, just like everything else. So one must compete for this resource. And if there are other businesses who are able to pay more or offer other perks that I can't, well, I have to compete for labor and talent. And that drives the price of labor and talent up. So employees or laborers have power as well. Individually, the more power you have typically has to do with your experience levels, your talent levels, your intelligence levels, but also your work ethic. How many tools are you willing to put in your tool belt? So there's a million different ways to provide value and to be valuable. And that's the beauty of the free market. So dictating what something costs, it's a minimum wage is effectively a price control. And price controls, as any economist worth anything at all understands, price controls always fail. They always distort the market, and they always provide perverse, incorrect incentives, and ultimately hurt the most, the least experienced, the newest entries into the market, and hurt usually the poor, the elderly, the people, the most vulnerable are oftentimes the one hurt the most. Because if I have to pay, and I'll end with this example because now I'm on my soapbox here, because nothing gets me more excited than basic economics. If I want 3 employees, and I have, let's say 25 or 30, we'll say $30 per hour that I can put towards labor. And that, of course, is before payroll taxes and all that bullshit, because nobody remembers that stuff either. So it doesn't cost me, $30 an hour. It actually costs me fucking 45, but that's beside the point. Let's say I got $30 and I want 3 employees, and I'll pay them all $10 an hour because maybe they're of equal value, or maybe somebody's worth 12 and 2 people are worth 8 or 9, something like that. The government says, nope, you've got to pay them all 15. And I go, okay, well, one of you doesn't get a job. I can only afford to pay 2 of you. And I'm taking the 2 most qualified, the 2 smartest, the 2 most experienced. And you over here, who may already struggle to move up the economic ladder and move up the career ladder, well, you just don't even get to start. Congratulations. The bottom rung has been removed from you. Thanks, government.
You jest about the government making people gajillionaires, but
Now to something that requires a good deal of luck. 2 people will begin the new year as Idaho's newest millionaires.
Whee!
Now, to begin with, they will have had to purchase a ticket in the Idaho Lottery's big $1 million raffle. All of the tickets sold out pretty quick, one of the fastest sellouts in the 19-year history of the $1 million raffle. This year, the folks at the Idaho Lottery Commission have decided to have 2 top prizes of $1 million. They also added a $100,000 prize and a $50,000 prize. And good luck.
There's a native ad for the Idaho State Lottery on Idaho NPR.
But poker is still illegal.
Yeah. After you win your
What
$1
the
million,
hell?
by the way, guess how much of that you get to keep? Almost 50%.
Ooh. Oh, yeah, you're 35% and change at the federal level, and Idaho state tax right now is just shy of 7%. So you're, I think, 42% and change as immediately just shoop off the top. Hey, you know what, though? A Quality Learing Center near you is going to really appreciate your involuntary contribution.
This thing, too, with the leftover money after your involuntary contribution, you can almost buy a starter home.
Almost buy a starter home in North Idaho. But you'll be what we call house poor, and you won't be able to afford the property taxes of anywhere from $2,000 to $6,000 a year.
Here's where you might be able to buy a home because they go for a discount when they are located adjacent or on top of I-90.
As construction continues on the I-90 expansion project out in North Idaho, residents there say they can definitely hear the difference, and they don't like it.
A project expected to take 4 years to complete is already causing problems, quite literally in the backyard of some residents here in Coeur d'Alene. Safety, pollution, and noise. These are just some of the things residents living along I-90 in North Idaho are saying haven't been taken into consideration during the I-90 expansion project. The project started last summer, which is why some of you might notice the lack of trees along the interstate. The project will widen the stretch of the interstate between Coeur d'Alene and Post Falls to 4 lanes in both directions, doubling the road space. Residents say they are upset because now there are no trees to form any sort of barrier between their houses and the roadway. From the beginning, residents say they have asked for a noise barrier, but Heather McDaniel, a spokesperson for the Idaho Transportation Department in charge of this project, says based on a federally required noise analysis, the entire corridor did not meet reasonability or feasibility thresholds, meaning the benefits do not outweigh the costs.
But we did reevaluate our findings just to make sure that nothing was overlooked, make sure that we're applying those recommendations appropriately. At the end of doing the noise analysis, at the end of looking at the recommendations and everything like that in that area, the answer for a sound wall at this point is not recommended.
That's because all of the money went into the CityLink bus system so that you could get your asses funneled to the Coeur d'Alene Tribal Casino.
Perfect.
We don't have the budget to improve your quality of life that we have also are responsible for wrecking. But shut up and give us your money. Pay your taxes. Man, I'm telling you what, I'm actually pretty excited about all of this fraud stuff being uncovered and about things just getting worse and worse and worse, at least on a macro level, because even while it sucks on a personal level, and I know a lot of people aren't having a good time with a lot of different things, change is a coming. You know how many people right now are thinking to themselves, why the fuck do we pay taxes?
Leave me alone. I don't have any change.
No change. Why do we do it, Scott? It got brought up yesterday. My kids asked me because I was complaining. Okay, I'm going to go on a tangent here. I got a letter from the state of Idaho yesterday. It is a notice and demand letter. According to them, shuffles notes here. I owe them $1,395.25.
Sure you do.
And 160 of that is interest, by the way. Woohoo. For amended tax returns for 2022. We had to do some changey on some things to clean some stuff up and make it more legit like it should be, because we made some mistakes, honest mistakes. And we went back to 2022, 2023 and amended some stuff. It turned out I owed money to the IRS and to the state of Idaho. Good times. I'm not loving it. And it's a mess because the amounts keep changing. Nobody can tell me precisely what I owe. I keep getting lots of letters. And the interest and the penalties are adding up. I also sent them checks, the IRS and the state. And the IRS finally processed the 2022 check after 2.5 months. And the state of Idaho just says they lost theirs. So I get this letter today, and I've been emailing the Idaho State Tax Commission over the last week and a half, asking them a litany of questions about what's going on and asking them, hey, like, please advise, how do you want me to proceed here? I don't want any more penalties and interest to rack up, but I also want to not overpay you guys. And also, there was a check. What did you guys do with it? And in the middle of all of that, the response I got back was they answered some of the questions, and then they didn't answer about half of my questions. But at the end of the email said, and it looks like we have answered all of your questions, so we're good here, right? And I was like, what? No. Then I get this letter the same day I got that email, so yesterday, that says, if we have not received full payment within 10 days after the date of this letter, and the date of this letter, Scott, is December 26th. So half of my days are already gone.
Yep.
And the other half are almost all fucking holidays and weekends, Scott. So I don't even know if I can get a hold of anybody in time. But it gets better. If I don't do it within 10 days, half of which are already gone, a lien will be recorded against your property for the tax and the interest shown.
Sure.
A levy may be issued to seize your wages, bank accounts, and other assets, and property belonging to you may be seized and sold. Oh, but they include this sentence. I love this. We prefer not to resort to such harsh measures and therefore urge you to resolve this matter.
If that isn't
Thank
the
you,
most
Idaho State Tax Commission.
mafioso sounding sentence.
That's a really nice house you've got there, Paul. It'd be a shame if we had to seize it and sell it for below market value to resolve your $1,300 tax debt.
You know, we don't prefer to strap those cement shoes on your feet, but, you know, we will.
So I'm feeling pretty saucy today. I'm pissed, man.
Yeah.
Fraud all over the place. Fraud. And these motherfuckers have the audacity to, at the state and the federal level, to just keep asking for money. Demanding money.
I was going to say
asking.
asking.
Is the wrong term.
Lol.
Demanding more money. And I know it's just wasted. It is absolutely. So I was ranting and raving about it yesterday while I was also fixing my leaky freezer. And at one point, one of my kids, I think it was Silas, was like, Dad, why do you even pay taxes? And of course he knows because they're my kids. They're my kids. So they know. They already know taxation is theft. They, when they see sirens flashing, they already know it's road pirates. Like they know. They know how the world works better than most adults. But they also know how to push my buttons. So I straight up was just like, so I don't go to prison. That's why I pay my fucking taxes, son. So I don't go to prison. But the worm is turning, Scott. The more fraud that keeps being revealed, which we already knew, like smart people, the very few of us who already knew how all this shit worked, we knew. And when Doge was happening earlier this year and all that shit came out, we're like, yeah, no, we knew all about this. Us libertarians, we knew. The Minnesota stuff, we knew. When we reveal all the Idaho stuff, I know. We know. And yet, I either have to contribute to it or I go to prison. I mean, like, how is everybody not a libertarian?
This is the crux of what I was driving at the top of the show. I hope, but I don't have a lot of faith, but I hope that people do the math and actually connect the dots between taxation and the nature of the state and what they are seeing in these viral unfoldings out of Minnesota. I worry that people are too narrowly focused on, in other words, they're going to blame the overweight, face-hiding Somalian people and not the state.
And you are correct. It's a legitimate concern. What you are saying is a legitimate concern, a misdirection, if you will. We need to direct our anger and our ire at the correct target. And as always, the correct target is the state. And it's a boogeyman of our own making, though. 100 years, 150 years of letting it get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and electing politicians who make it bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And, of course, having our own sacred cows. I mean, conservatives have this issue, too. They'll talk about, my welfare and all this kind of stuff and be like, we shouldn't be paying for welfare. We shouldn't be. But don't you touch my Social Security. I earned that. Right. It's like, well, you did pay into it. But statistically speaking, way, way, way more people get way, way, way more out of Social Security than they ever paid in. It's a net negative. That's why it's hemorrhaging money. And there is no magical account where it actually all lives. It's just IOUs just being transferred from one pocket to the next. And it's a net negative because people overall draw more than they put in. But these same people also will tell you that you can't cut, police budgets ever. And don't you dare ever cut the military budget. Just make it bigger. In fact, by however much you were going to cut it, we need to add to it. You know what the military budget was for 2025, Scott, at the federal level? That's not counting like state national guards and all that kind of shit. Almost $1 trillion.
This wasn't an Ask Scott. I was going to
trillion.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I should have let you guess. I'm still figuring out how to do this co-host thing. I'm kind of a selfish prick. I'm sorry, Scott. I love you. $1 trillion, Scott. But I feel good knowing that my $6,600 I sent the IRS will pay for 1/100th of a Patriot missile to blow up brown children in Somalia.
The irony. Or 11 seconds worth of daycare for a fake non-existent Somalian child in Minnesota nuts.
For that quality leering.
Speaking of, so, here's a great transition. If you wish to help Paul be extorted by the state, you can contribute to this show, value for value, because that's what this show is.
Yeah.
No ID.
Okay, please contribute to the Help Paul Pay His Overdue Taxes Fund. I beg you.
Is a value for value proposition. That means that if you find what you're hearing on this show valuable, then you contribute back to the show with your time, your talent, or your treasure, or any combination thereof. NoIDshow.com is our website, and it has all of the methods by which to do so. I do have I kind of shared that sort of boots on the ground contribution at the top, which we'll get into more next week because it's very interesting. Like I was saying, I just didn't have time to parse it. But that sort of stuff I really love getting. That's the talent, time and talent portion, so thank you. The treasure portion is also awesome so that we can just send it right along to the state so that they don't arrest us and take us away from our children. And along those lines, I do have, I was given it in person in cash. She just slapped it right into my palm, $20 from an executive producer this week, Reb the Gold-digging Cowgirl. So I wanted to thank Reb for that. And so that should pay, I'm not a mathematician, but what is that, like 0.0003% of your tax bill?
Or like 1/1,000,000th of a Javelin missile. Thank you, Reb, the Cowgirl, for your donation. Really appreciate it. It makes me feel like breaking out into song and dance.
Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-chingery. Money, oh money, how I love thee.
Charming. NoIDshow.com.
Did she have a message to go along with it?
She didn't. We had an in-person conversation, and she just that she's been enjoying the show. I wish she would have sent in like something written down so I could read it. But she didn't. She just said that she's been liking it. She's got a lot of acreage and a lot of farm animals and stuff. So I think she's listening while she's working her land. And she appreciated the show enough
keep
to
up the good work.
hand me $20. So thanks, Reb. We love you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Reb. May your homestead produce many valuable resources, including joy and also tangible things. Joy is great, but hopefully things you can eat and drink and good stuff like that.
NoIDShow.com. Thanks, everybody, for the support.
NoIDShow.com. NoIDShow.com.
And with that said, second half of show, let's start with an Ask Paul. And this one is going to be right at the beginning of the clip. And so here we go.
Idaho ranks.
What number does Idaho rank? This is for doctors, practicing physicians per capita.
Idaho ranks.
Out of 50 states, Idaho ranks what?
For doctors practicing per capita?
You got it.
Man, actually, that's a switcheroo. I thought for sure this was going to be about education, in which case I already knew that one. They always trot out that Idaho ranks 49th for education funding.
Right.
But what they don't trot out is that Idaho's actually middle of the pack for testing and academic performance, proving that you don't have to spend $26,000 per student per year to get better test scores. But I digress on that one. I would say, let's see, doctors per capita. Well, the health industry, the medical industry is the number one employer in Idaho, at least at the corporate level. It is the biggest employer overall in Idaho. But Idaho's not unique that way. But because there's 2.1 million people in Idaho, it's going to be an outset influence. I would say Idaho probably ranks higher up. It's probably going to be in the top 25%. So what would that be? The top 12. Idaho ranks in the top 15.
Idaho ranks 50th nationwide for physicians per capita and 44th in primary care physicians per capita. Now state healthcare leaders are pushing for a change. The Idaho Medical Education Working Group designed a plan to expand medical schools, strengthen rural training pathways, and help local doctors get paid to teach the next generation. It also grows residency programs, the single biggest factor in where doctors choose to practice.
The whole title of the project in many ways in section 2 is train here, stay here, grow here plan. Yeah. So the more training we do here, the more staying we do here, the more growing we do here, the more retention we have here.
State lawmakers are expected to discuss funding for the project in the new year. To be clear, the plan itself does not authorize spending or mandate specific actions. Those decisions rest with the entire legislature.
Oh, thank God.
So they're going to try to do some physician Leering Centers in Idaho to keep more doctors leering here and then practicing here.
That sounds like a great idea.
50.
Boy, did I whiff
last.
on that one. Dead last.
I thought you were gonna get there because you started off with the education thing, which was essentially 50.
I did. I almost went that direction, but then I outthought myself and I went, no, I know, like it is the number one of the, if it's not the number one employer, the medical industrial complex is top 3 in the state of Idaho. It's huge. It's huge. So, but of course, I guess it doesn't represent physicians necessarily. It just represents the corporate medical industrial complex. This is one of those moments where Scott's wondering why I'm even on the podcast.
What would you say you do here?
I deal with the
I get
goddamn
statistics wrong.
customers.
I do. Well, apparently you do that too. Nobody talks to me. They all reach out to you. I'm just up here in my Clark Fork Castle with my moat. Just anybody comes around and
Now go away or I shall taunt you a second time.
Oh, that's probably why nobody comes up here to talk to me.
Probably. What your neighbors were doing while the floodwaters were lapping at their ankles. You know who wants it to essentially be recriminalized, reclassified back to Schedule 1?
Earlier this month, the Trump administration reclassified marijuana from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3 drug. That move could bring new medical research and FDA-approved marijuana products. But now Idaho lawmakers are calling on President Trump to reconsider. Senators Mike Crapo and Jim Risch say the action undermines efforts to, quote, make America great again, arguing marijuana still fits Schedule 1 because of its abuse potential, and lack of FDA approval. A Natural Medicine Alliance of Idaho survey found 83% of voters statewide actually favor legalizing medical cannabis through a tightly regulated program.
It's hilarious. I seriously, Crapo and Rish actually think the FDA has credibility left? What planet do they live on?
Well, they are boomers.
It's not FDA approved, man.
What they are, prototypical Republican boomers. I mean, that's it. That's what they are. They're establishment Republican boomers. So everything that is the establishment does still have credibility because they've profited from it. Those dudes have been in office forever. They're the guys who will look you dead in the eye and tell you that poker should stay illegal while we run a state lottery, and that alcohol is bad, okay, because they're Mormon, but also they need it. The state needs the money, so the state will retain control of alcohol. And on top of all of that, they'll look you in the eye and be like, marijuana should be illegal, but legal heroin in the form of opioids is perfectly okay. Now shut up, sit down, drink your booze, take your Percocet, and play a scratch ticket.
You want to get high?
You know what's amazing too? I got some like a piece of campaign, like a postcard, the vote for Rish, and it had the asterisk and the fine print at the bottom that said these materials were sent using taxpayer dollars. So let's not forget that the money that you're going to be that's being wrung out of you like a bar rag is actually just going to be used for Jim Risch to send out his campaign promotional materials.
Yep, that is the beauty of our one of the beauties of our political system, and especially the two-party system, where each party is so big and so broad, they absorb every topic, and everybody has to pick one side or the other. And both sides have effectively created for themselves a perma nest from which they cannot be uprooted, and they do quite literally get taxpayer money funneled to their organizations, their national organizations, and all the way down to their local organizations, like the Kootenai County Precinct Committee. It receives, in some ways, some taxpayer money that comes from the National Republican Convention, which does receive taxpayer money. So that's how that works. In a nutshell, it's a little more nuanced than that. But yeah, we fund our own oppression, Scott. 8 ways to Sunday. The moment you realize it, it's just like,
Mother of God.
Yep, it's the black pill. There's no untaking it.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of oppression, here are some new laws coming into effect in 2026. A public service announcement from the No ID Show to you.
The new year will bring new laws and other changes to public services in Idaho.
Most laws take effect with the state's fiscal New Year's Day, July 1st, but a handful will kick in this week, including a bill designed to protect freedom of speech rights and insulate people from frivolous lawsuits. The anti-SLAPP statute allows the subject of a lawsuit to request a judge immediately determine whether it's frivolous and dismiss the case if so. Health insurers offering coverage in Idaho will now be required to cover the cost of breast exams for people at higher risk of breast cancer due to genetic history or dense breast tissue, and a multi-year effort to rewrite state law governing management of abandoned or impounded vehicles takes effect Thursday. Changes include requiring towing companies to post their fees and the creation of a database through the Idaho Transportation Department for towed vehicles and timely notification to owners or lien holders. It's not new legislation, but state police are raising fees for background checks in the new year by 20%. And one change that will not happen as expected, candy and sugary beverages becoming ineligible for purchase using SNAP food benefits, has been delayed to February 15th. The State Department of Health and Welfare in September pushed the implementation date by 45 days to allow more time for retailers to prepare for the change.
You want to talk about fraud. For one, towing of cars. I don't know how much experience you've had with this, but I'm from the People's Republic, and especially when I lived in the cities of the People's Republic, where you could not avoid parking tickets and you almost could not avoid getting your car towed either. Basically, everybody that I know, including myself, had it happen to them at least once, sometimes more than once, despite our best efforts. And there's always the interaction where you go in because your car got towed at 12:45 p.m. and you go in at 4:15 p.m. to get your car, and they're like, well, that's going to be $11 million. And you're like, well, why is it so much? Well, it's 3 days. 3 days. Like, I It's been 4 hours. Like, well, but see, 1 p.m. is the cutoff, and then right now it's technically the end of day, and then it's just like they give you the runaround. Like the whole thing was such a fraud. Everyone that I know had that experience where they basically charge you 2 days worth of fees for about 4 hours of holding, and you stole my car to begin with. And then the other part is the sugary beverages. Why was it ever the case that you could get Pepsi with food stamps?
It's very indicative or illustrative, I should say, of where things are at when health and welfare makes a determination that they have to extend the deadline out almost 2 months in order to give retailers time to adjust to a different sales flow is probably the most polite way to put it. Basically, retailers, and especially I'm sure convenience stores, because you see that they, all the convenience stores are like, we take EBT. All the grocery stores, we take EBT. The fact that they're having to emotionally and physically prepare for less sales in the junk food aisles because of rules that say you can't buy junk food with food stamps is pretty wild and very indicative of, fraud in Idaho. I mean, it's not fraud, okay? Because I guess, again, if it's within the rules, technically you could, legally it's not fraud. But folks like you and I and most
the program
reasonable
itself
folks
is
would consider it is a fraud. The program itself is a fraud. Truly. I mean, again, but that's, again, depends on the premise you operate from. I agree with you. But I'm agreed with you. The whole thing is. But now some of it's being codified. All right. If a reasonable person looks at junk food and goes, no, you shouldn't be able to buy that with food stamps. You buy the basics with food stamps. But that's how far we have fallen. And actually, it was super controversial. That's where it gets even crazier. In Idaho, it was it was a hot button topic, man. It was controversial. A lot of people were upset about it. Most of them, of course, were politicians whose power comes from that demographic, and self-righteous people who feel better about, extracting our money for their pet causes. And then people who were upset that they couldn't buy whatever they wanted with money that wasn't theirs to begin with. Pretty wild times. Maybe with the money saved, we can build them a Leering Center.
I do love the notion of having to emotionally prepare as a retailer. Like, for our employees, we're going to have an on-site therapist, so you can go in and have a like a cry session if you need. We just need to wrap our minds around the notion that the pajama pants wearing, wildly overweight food stamp bearers won't be able to buy 2 liters of Mountain Dew.
Oh no.
Whatever shall we do? Here's some more wonderful news about the private school. We brought this up. Maybe on one of the first few episodes, the private school tax credits.
This morning we're looking ahead to
exactly. Yep.
This morning we're looking ahead to a court hearing challenging Idaho's new private education tax credit. Our news partners at the Bonner County Daily Bee reporting the suit wants to block the state's first private school choice program from taking effect. The tax credit offers non-public school students up to $5,000 or $7,500 for students with special needs.
Now, wait a minute. $5,000, $7,500? I thought it cost $200,000 a month to watch a bunch of 3-year-olds. I mean, surely it's going to cost more than that to actually educate some teenagers, no?
That's only if quality is in the name.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point. See, they made a huge mistake.
$500 for students with special needs to offset tuition and other education expenses. The Idaho Supreme Court has scheduled oral arguments for January 23rd.
It's going all the way up to the Supreme Court.
The Idaho Teachers Union is really upset about this. And all of the politicians and the people who suckle at the teat of those unions and are put into power by those unions and all of the money that is involved. I mean, it is the education industrial complex. It is real, and it wants all of your schmeckles all the time. Shut up, sit down, don't question us. We don't want any accountability. We just want to do what we want to do, and we need all of your tax dollars. And this threatens them because they're smart enough to know that the moment people are able to further break free from the subpar products and services that they provide, that they have a monopoly on, a near monopoly on, the floodgates open. The more people can break free from the institution, the more they will break free from the institution. That's why the teachers' unions and the powers that be keep such a tight grip on state education. They don't like anything that challenges it. HB 93 was far from perfect, but it was an excellent step in the right direction. Ultimately, where you need to get to is full-blown vouchers and ESAs and things like that. If anybody cares about like actual education and school choice and things like that. The whole concept of fighting to get on the school board at the local level or even at the state level really is in a strategy that has been proven a failure time and time again. So again, as a libertarian, we look at conservatives who are fighting those battles and we just go, just stop putting money and effort towards trying to get on school boards or change curriculum or anything like that. Stop trying to change a system that's doing exactly what it's designed to do. Instead, let's focus on creating our own system, our own society. The system is a kind of a rigid term for basically just, school choice, educational choice in general in every facet of our lives. But let's start with education. It's pretty crazy that the same people who will lecture us about how unique and different each child is and whatnot are the same people who want to hammer everybody into conformity within one size fits all generic system of education.
Mask them up. Mask up those kids. One size fits. We don't even want to see any individual faces. You're all just students.
Yep. Wear a mask and sing. And dance, monkey, dance.
Here's another clip with regard to Idaho, quote, schools.
The federal government is pulling $30 million in funding from a program that brings essential services and resources into rural Idaho schools. Some Idaho school districts are worried about this sudden cut.
We're going to have students and families that don't have their needs met.
Yeah, like they're not going to be able to get 2 liters of Mountain Dew.
The American Falls School District is one of 22 districts in the Gem State benefiting from a federal full-service community schools grant. In 2023, the U.S. Department of Education awarded the nonprofit United Way of Treasure Valley nearly $46 million for a 5-year community schools grant to support rural Idaho schools. The funds help place community coordinators in schools to bring resources in that communities need more access to.
I'm going to play that again.
Wait. So the money pays for administrators whose job it is to get more money. Did I hear that right?
That was the real-time Paul translation, but it was only based on hearing it once. Let me play it again, and you can provide hopefully a translation as precisely as possible.
The funds help place community coordinators in schools to bring resources in that communities need more access to.
What the hell is a community coordinator? Is this just like back when Obama was running for president and the term came up, community organizer? This sounds like the same damn thing.
Sort of does, doesn't it?
This is exactly the grift and the graft we're talking about. We're like, whoever fills these positions is somebody who knows somebody and is useless anywhere else in the marketplace. So this is a jobs program is what this is.
Later in the clip, you're never going to guess the tactic that the superintendent, who I looked him up, he makes $140,000 a year. You're never going to guess the tactic that he uses to defend this.
Won't somebody please think of the children?
The funds help place community coordinators in schools to bring resources in that communities need more access to.
When families have their needs met, kids can come to school prepared to learn, ready to learn, and they'll be able to do better there.
Superintendent Randy Jensen says there's a coordinator in each of their 4 schools. They've brought in resources like food pantries, dental clinics, and mental health services. But earlier this month, the U.S. Department of Education let the nonprofit know the grant is being cut off 3 years early and funds would stop at the end of the month, putting 60 full-time staff positions in jeopardy.
Just finding out that we're going to lose the total funding for them in just 2 weeks is pretty tragic for us.
The Department of Education cites the program focuses on diversity, equity, and inclusion instead of fairness and education excellence. But Jensen pushes back on that.
It does.
All this has to do with providing the help they need. And by helping people, that does raise our academic standards and our academic success.
And with 2026 budgets already set, Jensen says it could be hard or impossible for districts to try and retain these positions on their own.
It'll hurt our students, hurt our student families, and in the long run, it'll hurt our community.
So there are charts all over the internet that track. Most of them start the year that the Department of Education was created. So we're talking late 60s, early 70s. because that's just a great benchmark.
Whoa. How did anybody learn anything before that, dude?
Well, they didn't. Everybody was just knuckle dragging Neanderthals. We had no roads. We had no schools. We had no inventions of any kind. Nobody could read or write or communicate properly before 1978. Or it was total chaos. It was total chaos. You got it. But yeah, check those charts. They're out there. They're just Google search them, man. And one can see that the percentage of administration across the board, this is in education as a whole, but you can break it down state by state, county by county, and it still works the same way. Student enrollment has gone up 5%, 7%, and that's across the whole country. In a lot of areas, it's actually decreased. And this is for state-run education, of course. Meanwhile, administrative positions have increased by anywhere from 70% to 120%, again, depending on your chart, your graph, and your region. So they always complain about not having enough money, but they're so happy to pay 50, 60, 70, 80, 120, 140 grand for all these, for community coordinators. This is a jobs program. In fact, education itself is a jobs program. It's not about the students. It's about mainly useless leftists hanging on to jobs where they get tenure, retirement, platinum benefits, decent pay, decent schedule, and no oversight. Or very little, or they themselves oversee themselves. You know, it's like anytime the government does an investigation and they're like, we investigated ourselves and found no wrongdoing. That's the education complex in a nutshell.
With all that said, we here at No ID hope that you have a happy ding dang New Year and a wonderful 2026. And here, let's finish this New Year's show with the thing we all loved to do on New Year's Eve in 1998, watch things drop from towers.
On Wednesday, millions will tune in to watch the ball drop at midnight in Times Square, but Idahoans are adding their own spin on the classic New Year's Eve tradition.
Since 2012, Boise has been ringing in each new year by lowering a 17-foot potato from a crane in downtown Boise. The spud wears white wings and is illuminated, dubbing it the Glow-tato. The Idaho potato drop has brought Boise national recognition. In 2023, USA Today ranked the event as the second best New Year's Eve celebration in the nation.
The first best thing to do is to go to the Cosmo in Vegas and do a bunch of blow.
New Year's Eve celebration in the nation. Rupert, Idaho is counting down to midnight with another root vegetable.
Boise has the potato and we have the sugar beet.
That's Kit Carney, president of Square Events, the organizer of the sugar beet drop. The city of Kuna will enter 2026 by dropping a gem.
No, it's here.
Keely Perez,
It's the gem state, dude.
2026 by dropping a gem. Keely Perez, recreation and event specialist, says the idea behind the event is simple.
Idaho's known for the gem state.
Although Kuna is near Boise's potato drop, Perez says she hopes the gem...
Wait a minute. Hold on. I gotta mark this so I remember to ISO it.
Idaho's known for the gem state.
For the gem state?
For the gem state.
Behold, a community coordinator putting on a drop the beat, which actually I made it sound way cooler. Drop the beat.
Although Kuna is near Boise's potato drop, Perez says she hopes the gem can keep the celebration local.
This is more like small hometown kind of coziness, I suppose, instead of going, to downtown.
Jackson Holmes, Public Radio News.
It's sort of a weird cut.
Okay, this woman is a sugar beet. She has the IQ of a sugar beet. Just saying, she's a public employee.
Was she? I thought it was she worked for the event coordination company.
We have the sugar beet.
That's Kit Carney, president of Square Events, the organizer of the sugar beet drop.
Square Events, I think it's a private company. And
I might stand corrected. Will enter 2020 community organizer type position.
Let's re-listen.
The city of Kuna will enter 2026 by dropping a gem. Keely Perez, recreation and event specialist, says the idea...
Keely Perez, recreation and event specialist? Okay, let's look her up real quick. Keely Perez, events specialist. Is she like an event specialist for the city?
She's like an event specialist.
Events and action coordinator it is. She works for the city. How do you like that?
I told you. The title was just too government-y. The only other entities that have positions like that are big corporations.
This is more like
That's a really exaggerated one.
It hurts.
Good times.
I can't.
Idaho is like the gem state? Question mark.
I work for the city.
I'm an events specialist.
I'm so warm in my heart as I send this money to the state of Idaho. It just makes me feel so good that I'm contributing to the Keely Perez's of the world and the Leering Centers of the world.
After you're done licking the envelope to send that check off, what say you and I fly to Vegas and do a bunch of blow all night on New Year's? Try to turn our brains off for once.
I say we set up an NGO first and funnel it all through that and make the taxpayer pay for our blow.
That's something that actually might cost $200,000 a month.
Yeah, but all we got to do is get the CIA involved and they'll cover our bills and then give us qualified immunity.
Good times. Happy New Year from Post Falls. This is Scott.
And I'm Paul Banducci. Taxation is theft.
Idaho's known for the gem state.